In a rural Virginia town,
We have 21 missing still.
an epidemic of migrant runaways.
Pretty much all these neighborhoods, an unaccompanied minor has run away.
Yes.
Vulnerable children who cross the southern border alone, settled with a sponsor, then vanished.
Are you worried about her?
Sí, porque yo no sabía dónde está.
A Scripps News joint investigation with the Center for Public Integrity. Why the biggest obstacle to finding them may be the U.S. government.
I'm calling because you found his handgun in the student's backpack.
Guns in schools.
He easily could have ended up killing another innocent person.
Hundreds of cases of kids, some as young as the age of 5, carrying firearms into classrooms.
Do me a favor, keep your hands out of your pockets for me.
What we find offers a startling glimpse inside our nation's schools.
Hands up!
Help is on the way. We're coming now.
And ambulance refusals.
My wife would have had a 95% chance of survival if she would have gone in an ambulance.
Paramedics responding to 911 calls, then convincing patients they don't need help.
That ambulance is $1,500. I mean, we'll take her. You got $1,500. I know what I'd like to do. $1,500.
Our 2-year investigation into dozens of cases in Arizona and how a new state law hasn't stopped it from happening.
I was having a heart attack for 5 hours.
I'm Katie Beck in Washington. Welcome to this edition of Scripps News Investigates. It'd be hard to find too many issues right now that are more in the nation's spotlight than immigration. In recent months, there's been a record number of migrants trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border, including many children who are coming here alone. The federal government places these kids in homes of sponsors here in the U.S. who are supposed to take care of them. But a joint investigation by Scripps News and the Center for Public Integrity discovered many of these children are running away from their sponsors' homes, thousands of them. Investigative correspondent Patrick Terpstra discovered that finding these children is not easy, and the biggest obstacle may be the U.S. government.
These are faces of migrant runaways. Children who came across the southern border alone were placed by the U.S. government with an adult sponsor and then vanished. Every child you see here disappeared from the same small town of Culpeper, Virginia, about a 2-hour drive from Washington, D.C.
This is all my missing kids right here.
These files are pretty thick.
It's Culpeper Police Detective Norma McGuckin's job to try to find them, and she says her cases all seem to unfold the same way.
The sponsor will take him in, or her, and then within 30 days tops, a couple days sometimes, and then the child just picks up and leaves.
You called this a crisis.
We have 21 missing still.
That's a crisis.
On a small town,
Yeah.
very small town.
Every chance she gets, McGuckin drives through these neighborhood streets looking for any sign of the missing kids. Pretty much all these neighborhoods, you can point to a house where
Yes.
an unaccompanied minor has run away.
Yes, on this side back here.
Since she became a detective here in 2018, she's managed to find 15 of them, but more keep running away every year. We discovered more than 500,000 unaccompanied minors have come into this country since 2018, and over 6,000 of them have reportedly run away from their sponsor homes.
They're somebody's children. I always worry that they may be in trouble somewhere, being taken advantage of. That's my worry.
She told us she's especially worried about Horlandina Lopez Perez.
She came into the country pregnant.
She was 16 when she vanished.
This case is unique in that you have a baby missing as well as a minor.
Correct.
There's paperwork for her when she was still pregnant.
We obtained this body camera video of the moment police arrived at the home of her sponsor. The woman tells police she came back from work one day and realized Horlandina was gone, along with her 4-month-old baby boy. We wanted to know if the sponsor had heard anything from Horlandina in the months since, so we tracked her down at her home. She agreed to talk to us on her porch. Where is Horlandina today?
La verdad no sé.
Are you worried about her?
Sí, porque yo no sabía dónde está. Ojalá que si ella sí está bien.
So normally
It's the kind of dead end Detective McGuckin is used to. She says finding any of these children is a process riddled with hurdles. But we were surprised when she said the biggest obstacle is the U.S. government and its Office of Refugee Resettlement, which is responsible for looking after these kids until they're placed with a sponsor.
When you call that office, what happens?
Sometimes it depends on who I get on the phone, but most times I don't get much.
What do they say about why they won't give you this information to help you track down these missing kids?
They're just not allowed.
The agency keeps case files for every unaccompanied child that enters this country, including photos, birth certificates, and addresses for other family members. It's invaluable information McGuckin says she could be using to find these kids. Dozens of police reports we obtained document her interactions with this agency. In one case, a government social worker tells her it was against their policies to share a photo of a missing 14-year-old, even though the detective stressed without one, it was like looking for a ghost. No one from the Office of Refugee Resettlement was permitted to speak to Scripps News, so we sat down with Robert Carey. He led the office during the Obama administration.
Is this office standing in the way of finding missing children?
No, absolutely not.
Carey says the office would share information about migrant children with police like McGuckin, but only if it was requested in writing.
But if an officer calls and says, I've got a missing child, I think the child could be in danger, can I get a photo? Can I get family contact information? Why not just give that officer that information?
What's to prevent you or me from calling and saying, I need a photograph of a child. I need their background information.
But these are missing kids. These are missing children.
Right, and their vulnerability and their safety is paramount. You have to determine it's not a trafficker. It's not someone looking to exploit a child. And that requires some degree of verification.
Even though verification takes time.
Yes, it does, but you do not want to put a child in more danger than they would otherwise be.
A few months after Scripps News and the Center for Public Integrity began asking questions, we noticed the Office of Refugee Resettlement published a policy detailing how police can lawfully obtain personal information about migrant children.
Was this office taking this issue seriously if it was really only until August 2023 that they actually published how local law enforcement could get vital information about runaway children?
There were communications with local law enforcement in many instances. It wasn't publicly posted on a website. That doesn't mean it didn't exist.
We found out that the office's national call center received nearly 7,000 calls reporting a child missing. What do you think when you hear that number?
It's concerning. It's absolutely concerning. And I think it requires further investigation.
Do you worry about these kids?
Constantly, yes. I think these children are particularly vulnerable. They're not arriving with parents or guardians. It's all about protecting the safety of children.
For Detective McGuckin, those efforts to protect the safety of Culpeper's missing children have, for too long, been getting in the way of her work to try to find them.
This is frustrating for you.
It is.
Why?
Because it's making my job harder. I'm doing everything I can possibly, but I can only go so far with the information I'm given.
She told us she'll never give up on these kids, but knows the chances of finding them decrease with every passing day.
Detective McGuckin told Patrick recently she is now finally getting the information she needs from the U.S. government about new runaways, and she hopes they'll be sharing details about some of her older cases soon. Guns in schools. Those are chilling words that we are hearing too often these days. After a 6-year-old Virginia boy shot his teacher in a classroom last school year, we wanted to find out how often guns are making their way into our kids' classrooms. Our Scripps News investigation turned up hundreds of cases. Here's national investigative correspondent Lori Jane Gliha.
Hi, my name is Dan Munson. I'm the principal at Bartsville Elementary. I'm calling because we found a handgun in the student's backpack.
This is the 9mm handgun a teacher pulled from a child's backpack at Robertsville Elementary School outside of St. Louis, Missouri, just weeks into the school year last year. The backpack belonged to a kindergartner, Taylor Lemieux's 5-year-old son.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. I mean, he easily could have ended up killing another innocent person.
The boy's mother is facing a felony charge for endangering the welfare of the child. Scripps News obtained this body camera footage showing her explaining how her son got her gun.
I had no idea it was gone because it's been in my glove box for a couple years and not thought about whatever.
We tried to reach her for comment, but she has yet to respond. Case documents we gathered reveal the gun had a full 10-round magazine inserted, with one in the chamber and the safety off.
Can you describe why your son said he put that gun in his backpack?
From what he told me is that he put it in his backpack to keep it away from his younger brother.
Lemieux says the school suspended his son for the rest of the year. While incidents like this are rare,
Do me a favor, keep your hands out of your pockets for me.
our investigation discovered they're happening in schools all over the country.
Lift your sweatshirt up again. What is that?
A new Scripps News analysis of national data collected by the Gun Violence Archive found there were at least 295 reports of students younger than 18 bringing guns to school in the first half of this school year alone. That's compared to 422 during the same period last school year, 327 in 2021, and 214 in 2019, the year preceding the pandemic, just before many schools closed. To learn more about how kids are sneaking these weapons into schools, we filed open records requests asking for body camera videos, police reports, and photos from about 40 school districts in 11 states.
Like an AR-15.
We were all saying that. Like,
yeah,
like someone's not checking bags and stuff. Assemble it or...
In Cleveland, Ohio, an 18-year-old high school student brought this dismantled AR-15 style rifle in his book bag last school year by bypassing a main security checkpoint. He also had a full 30-round magazine filled with live ammunition. According to a police report, the student said he was allowed by school administration to enter through the rear entrance, which does not have a security checkpoint and is approved for a small number of special needs students.
Watch your head, man.
The district told us security officers eventually recognized the student was not part of the approved group, checked his bag, and found the gun. And at another Cleveland school,
Hey guys, come on here. All for you.
body camera and a security report we obtained blames 2 assistant principals for briefly letting a group of armed teens, at least one wearing a mask, past a first set of doors inside the school before the teens took off running.
Get this guy, get this guy.
Police chased them down, recovered these guns, and arrested 3 students.
Hands up, hands up. Hands up. Don't reach for it. Don't reach for it.
In California, authorities caught a 9th grader with this gun in his front pocket. In North Carolina, a 12-year-old fired the shot with this gun that cracked this window.
Take off the bling bling.
And in Baltimore, Maryland,
All right, it beep, go back.
not even these metal detectors could keep 3 guns off the grounds at Mergenthaler Vocational Technical High School last year. One was a loaded handgun.
Put your hand around your belt.
Even as schools nationwide spend millions on security to keep guns out of schools, researchers insist the best solution may not be increased physical security, but rather something that happens before kids even get to school. A January 2023 report from the RAND Corporation found supportive evidence that laws with specific language requiring gun owners to safely store their firearms reduce youth firearm injuries, including suicide, assaults, and homicides, by limiting a child's access to guns.
If you're not responsible to keep your firearms and keep them locked up, you shouldn't be in possession of them.
Taylor Lemieux says this experience has taught his family one of the most important lessons they'll ever learn.
When you hear about another kid did take a gun and did end up shooting someone,
It's horrible. I mean, it's not something you ever want to be in a position of having to deal with, and then just realizing your kid was close to doing the same thing. I mean, it's scary.
No one, fortunately, was hurt in that incident. As for the 6-year-old who brought a gun to his school in Virginia and shot his teacher last school year, that child's mother is now paying the price in prison. A judge sentenced her to 5 years behind bars for felony child neglect. And the teacher in that case is now suing the school district for $40 million in damages. Imagine suffering a life-threatening medical emergency, and when first responders arrive at your home, they downplay your symptoms and say you don't need an ambulance. It's known as ambulance refusal, and the Scripps News Investigative team in Phoenix, Arizona, has uncovered multiple cases over the past 2 years in that city, including at least one that resulted in death. Senior investigative reporter Melissa Blasius from Scripps News Phoenix has the story.
67-year-old Rob Martino is exhausted just walking to the end of his driveway. The mailbox down the block is too far.
I get up in the morning, get in the shower, I'm sweating because I'm doing too much. I can't lift a box. I can't do much.
When we visited his North Phoenix home in November, Rob wore a heart defibrillator called a life vest under his shirt 24/7.
If this life vest goes off and I can't press the 2 buttons at the same time, that tells the vest I'm in trouble. It puts out a loud siren and a warning. Do not touch patient, treatment imminent, and then it'll zap me.
Rob had a prior heart attack in 2019. Then on September 2nd, 2023, Rob said his chest pain started in the morning, and by 9:30 at night, he collapsed in the bathroom.
Fire department, how may I help you?
Rob's significant other, Carrie Gale, called 911.
Make sure that he's still awake and still breathing, please.
Rob, I'm right here. They're going to be here any second.
Help is on the way. We're coming, ma'am.
A fire truck and an ambulance were dispatched.
What did you expect to happen when you called 911?
I knew that it was very serious. My expectation was that they'll handle it accordingly.
Rob says he doesn't remember much about what happened next. Carrie fielded questions from the EMTs.
And they said, Mr. Martino, you're not having a heart attack, you're having a panic attack. You need to put ice on your neck, you need to breathe from your stomach. And they left.
But Rob's condition worsened. Carrie called 911 again at 3 a.m.
You did dispatch an ambulance earlier.
Okay, it's all right, ma'am. Again, help is already on the way.
Rushed to the Mayo Clinic, records show Rob was having a heart attack that night and needed an emergency procedure to install a stent. He's filed this complaint with the state health department, which regulates paramedics and EMTs.
Because they didn't transport me, I was in heart attack mode. I mean, I was having a heart attack for 5 hours. The bottom of my heart will never recover. It's, as they put it, flopping around black.
Rob is one of dozens of people who reached out to Scripps News Phoenix saying they called 911 needing emergency medical help, but Phoenix's firefighter paramedics either never brought an ambulance or convinced them to decline a ride to the emergency room. One patient even caught the firefighters on a Ring doorbell camera.
That ambulance is $1,500. I mean, we'll take her. You got $1,500. I know what I'd like to do with $1,500.
In another case, the city paid a $1.65 million settlement to Bruce Sandberg without admitting fault after he called 911 for his wife in 2021. Phoenix firefighters did not provide an ambulance. She died of a heart attack minutes later.
My wife would have had a 95% chance of survival if she would have gone in an ambulance.
It's now state law in Arizona that emergency medical care technicians may not counsel a patient to decline emergency medical services transportation. And the law even requires EMTs to explain risks and consequences if not transported. The Phoenix Fire Department says after the law changed, they are making more hospital runs, about 34 more a day in 2023. And anyone who wants an ambulance gets one. But despite the new law, Rob Martino says he still did not get a ride to the hospital after his first 911 call.
What is your response to them?
It's not fixed. It's broken. How many years is my life shortened? You don't know. I don't know.
Arizona's state health department declined to comment on Rob Martino's complaint, and so did the fire department that responded to his home. They told our investigative team in Phoenix that this case remains under investigation. And now we have an update to share. At the beginning of March, we told you about Forrest Van Patton, a Michigan man whose insurance company wouldn't cover the cancer treatments doctors said was his last hope. He died not knowing a state law had long required health insurers in Michigan to cover cancer drugs. Our Scripps News investigative team partnered with ProPublica to reveal how Van Patton's insurance company justified denying him coverage despite the law. Moved by our report, Michigan State Senator Jeff Irwin has now introduced a bill he says will make it crystal clear that gene and cell cancer therapies, the type of treatment Van Patton never received, must be covered by state health plans.
This person's last chance to try these gene therapies and see if it could save their life was denied. And unfortunately, that individual is now passed. But we need to make sure that an insurer doesn't employ a creative interpretation of this law to deny someone else coverage.
Forrest Van Patton's insurer, Priority Health, previously told us it began covering the treatment his doctors said he needed several years ago, some time after Forrest's death. When we reached out to them for comment on this bill, a spokesperson told us the company complies with all existing state and federal laws and stands ready to work with Michigan lawmakers and regulators to offer affordable access to evidence-based treatment. I'm Katie Beck. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for another edition of Scripps News Investigates.